In Southeast Asia, old wounds are threatening to reopen between the Philippines and Malaysia, two founding ASEAN members. Their tensions, rooted in centuries-old territorial claims over Sabah and the South China Sea, are more than just lines on a map. They test regional stability and international law. The dispute over Sabah, administered by Malaysia but claimed by the Philippines, is now entangled with the broader power struggle in the South China Sea. This convergence of colonial-era legacies and modern geopolitics creates a uniquely complex challenge. The strains are no longer hidden. They play out in public statements, legal battles, and strategic posturing, with consequences for the entire Indo-Pacific. For Malaysia, Sabah is a non-negotiable part of its national identity. For the Philippines, the claim is a constitutional mandate. Sabah's resources and the South China Sea's strategic value raise the stakes even higher. A miscalculation in one arena could easily spill into the other, complicating resolution and drawing in larger powers. To understand this dynamic, we must peel back layers of history, law, and politics. The Sabah dispute is a classic post-colonial dilemma, tracing back to an 1878 agreement between the Sultan of Sulu and British interests. The Philippines claims this was a lease, not a cession, arguing sovereignty was never transferred, just administrative rights for an annual payment. Malaysia, however, insists the agreement was a permanent transfer and that the payments were cession money, not rent. This legal ambiguity has allowed the dispute to fester for over a century. The Philippines points to Malaysia's annual payments to the Sultan's heirs as proof of a lease. Malaysia says it's just fulfilling a historical obligation. The 1987 Philippine Constitution references historical claims, making it politically impossible for any leader to drop the Sabah claim. For Malaysia, Sabah is fully integrated. Its people vote, its economy is vital, and its loss would undermine the Federation's foundation. The dispute is not just about history. It shapes national identity and policy in both countries. Each side clings to its interpretation, ensuring the issue remains unresolved. The result, a diplomatic stalemate with no easy solution in sight. The Sultanate of Sulu once ruled a maritime empire stretching from the southern Philippines to Borneo, and its legacy fuels the Philippine claim to Sabah. The 1878 agreement is seen by the Philippines as an act of sovereign management, not a private transaction. Today, the Sultanate is fragmented, with multiple claimants and no official political power, weakening its international credibility. Malaysia's annual payments to the heirs maintained a delicate balance, acknowledging history without conceding sovereignty. That balance shattered in 2013 when Malaysia halted payments after the Lahad Datu incursion by armed followers of a Sulu claimant. This ended formal contact and pushed the heirs to seek international arbitration. The result, a dormant grievance became an active, high-stakes legal battle. The Sultanate's internal divisions and the end of payments have only complicated the path to resolution. What was once a quiet dispute is now a global legal and financial fight. In 2013, the Sabah dispute erupted into violence when armed followers of a Sulu claimant landed in Lahad Datu, sparking a deadly standoff with Malaysian forces. The incursion hardened Malaysian views, led to the creation of ESCOM, and ended the annual payments to the Sultan's heirs. Diplomatic relations soured, making compromise even harder. The dispute then moved to the courts. In 2022, a French arbitration court ordered Malaysia to pay the Sultan's heirs $14.9 billion for breaching the 1878 agreement. Malaysia rejected the ruling, calling it illegitimate, and launched legal challenges across Europe. The heirs tried to seize Malaysian assets abroad, turning the dispute into a global financial saga. The legal battle has added a new, contentious layer to the conflict. What began as a historical grievance is now a high-stakes fight over sovereign assets. Alongside the Sabah dispute, the South China Sea has become a new arena of conflict for the Philippines and Malaysia. Both claim parts of the Spratly Islands, putting them at odds with each other and with China's sweeping nine-dash line. The Philippines takes a legalistic, assertive approach, winning a landmark case in The Hague in 2016. Malaysia prefers quiet diplomacy, developing resources while avoiding open confrontation. Despite differences, both face Chinese harassment of their fishermen and energy projects. Shared challenges have sometimes pushed them toward cooperation, but overlapping claims remain a barrier to unity. The South China Sea dispute is as much about resources and strategy as it is about sovereignty. The result, a complex mix of partnership and rivalry shaped by external pressure from China. The Sabah and South China Sea disputes are deeply intertwined. Malaysia's maritime claims in the South China Sea are based on its control of Sabah. The Philippines argues that if Sabah is theirs, so are the maritime entitlements. This linkage complicates cooperation. Supporting Malaysia's South China Sea claims could be seen as conceding Sabah. In 2009, the Philippines protested a Malaysia-Vietnam UN submission because it included areas projected from Sabah. A weakened Malaysia, distracted by the Sabah dispute, could be less able to defend its maritime rights, potentially benefiting China. The legal principles at stake in each dispute can boomerang, exposing both countries to accusations of hypocrisy. The entanglement limits strategic options and makes a consistent foreign policy difficult. The result, a diplomatic knot that's hard to untangle. Economic interests and shifting alliances drive the disputes as much as history or law. Sabah is a resource powerhouse for Malaysia, vital to its economy and national budget. The $14.9 billion arbitration award threatens Malaysia's finances, making resistance an economic necessity. For the Philippines, Sabah's resources represent a powerful incentive to keep the claim alive. Both countries also covet the South China Sea's untapped hydrocarbons, fueling competition and tension. Strategic alliances add complexity. The Philippines has deepened defense ties with the US, while Malaysia balances relations with both Washington and Beijing. An escalating row could complicate US efforts to counter China and weaken ASEAN unity. China, meanwhile, may exploit the discord to advance its own interests in the region. The disputes are as much about economic survival and strategic positioning as about sovereignty. The stakes go far beyond history. They shape the future of the region. As of mid-2025, Philippine-Malaysian relations are at a crossroads. The $14.9 billion arbitration award is a major obstacle, poisoning diplomatic engagement. A face-saving compromise, perhaps a smaller settlement or a freeze on legal action, could open the door to dialogue. Resolving Sabah's sovereignty is unlikely, but managing the dispute is possible. Practical cooperation, joint security patrols, marine conservation, and clear protocols for migrants could ease tensions. ASEAN's role is limited, but it can help keep communication open and prevent escalation. Progress on a South China Sea Code of Conduct could reduce risks at sea, even if Sabah remains unresolved. Ultimately, leadership and political will are needed to move from confrontation to pragmatic partnership. The Philippines and Malaysia are caught between history and the demands of the present. The Sabah claim, reignited by a multi-billion-dollar legal fight, and the South China Sea rivalry have created a volatile mix of mistrust and maneuver. Actions in one arena affect the other, limiting strategic options and complicating cooperation. Economic interests, colonial legacies, and divergent alliances further tangle the web. The path to de-escalation is narrow, requiring political courage and a shift to pragmatic management. While sovereignty over Sabah may remain unresolved, practical steps, like resolving the arbitration crisis and enhancing security cooperation, can rebuild trust. The stability of ASEAN and the region depends on these two neighbors finding a way to honor their past without sacrificing their future. The story is still being written, and its outcome will shape Southeast Asia for years to come.